Hello, my name is Nick Wickley. I'm an avid watch collector and just general enthusiast of many different brands, but primarily I've found myself gravitating towards Richard Mille in recent years. Along with a lot of you guys, I've noticed that Mark Zuckerberg has really made a splash recently getting into the hobby that is watch collecting. And the one notable brand that's always been missing from the different photos that he's posted, he's never wearing the same watch twice, is Richard Mille. That brand seems to be conspicuously missing amongst a panoply of all these other brands, including some very, very unheard of independents. And so I'm going to take a look at some of the watches that are notable in his collection, and then I'm going to tell you which Richard Mille he's going to get. The first watch that, we kind of saw Mark Zuckerberg wear that was super notable was the Greuebel Forsey handmade one. Greuebel Forsey is super, super renowned for like their high level of finishing, which is like second to none. What people don't realize is that an additional 5% of finishing beyond a Patek will take you like maybe 4 to 6 times as long, right? It doesn't scale linearly. And so the handmade one is, something kind of superlative even for Greuebel Forsey, in that everything is handmade, right? None of it is machined. Every part is not only hand assembled, but even the metal is like, hand carved, hand sculpted, everything is fitted, perfectly to the watch. And, Mark Zuckerberg was spotted wearing this piece, which was pretty interesting. And it shows you a few things. One, he enjoys high level finish. Two, he really seems to like skeletonization, which is when you can see the mechanics or the guts of the watch, whether because the dial is transparent or in this case, because it's staggered and kind of exposed. But the next watch that, he's known to have worn is the 6239 Paul Newman Datona in gold. It's a very rare iteration of, the Datonas, which were not popular back in the 60s. And he's wearing one of the rarest versions in yellow gold. And so him wearing such a perfect example of that watch shows you that he, has a lot of taste, and he's gravitated towards kind of the vintage, historically notable, side of watch collecting. Next watch is his FP Journe FFC, Francis Ford Coppola collab with FP Journe. This watch I also really, really like. It's one of the most unique watches I've seen. It tells time not with like, 2 hands, one for hour, one for minute, but it has just a metal fist, like a knight's gauntlet. And it symbolizes the time with the fingers that are shown, because the fingers like will extend and retract, right? And so it's like, 1 p.m., 2 p.m., etc. It's a very, very hard to get piece, and retail it runs close to $900,000. On the gray market, it's probably like $2 to $3 million. Of course, it's on Mark Zuckerberg's wrist, and he has it on a red strap, I think, when he was on Rogan. And then the next watch is the Bulgari Octo Finissimo Ultra. This is at one point the thinnest watch in the world. And it's just remarkable in that if you've ever had one on your wrist, that or the Richard Mille Ferrari watch, same thing. It's almost trippy because you look down at your wrist and you see the surface area it's taking up, and then you realize like you can't feel it on your wrist at all. And so you have to just keep looking down to like really register that it's still there. And then your brain is always like, wait, how's that weigh nothing? Because it takes up such a big surface area. And then the last watch we'll talk about from his collection, and he's like never worn the same watch twice, which is wild, is the Patek 5303R. It is a minute repeater, which means that when you click the button on the side, it chimes the hours, such as like this. Next to the tourbillon, it's seen as kind of like one of the most lofty complications that a watch can have. His version, which is also a Patek, has some additional detailing, which is that, once again, the dial is skeletonized. That means you can see right through it and see all the guts, all the mechanics of the watch. And also it makes the chime, like a grandfather clock kind of on the click for each hour. And this one also has a tourbillon, which is shown, with the seconds hand attached. So these are kind of the watches that Mark Zuckerberg seems to gravitate towards. And, given that RM is so conspicuously missing from his collection, I've assembled a short list of RM watches that Zuck is likely going to pick up. You know, we're going to start with kind of a sappy kind of pick here, which is the RM0702 Sapphire. And so, you know, you look at this one and it's like, well, wait, why would he pick this one? It's like, you know, gym set. He's not into gym set watches, at least from what we've seen so far, except in one example. Well, the thought process for this is that, like, this is a ladies RM and it's a ladies Sapphire RM. And I feel like it could be a natural first pickup for his wife. You know, like in recent times, he's gotten into jewelry designing. He's customized a few vehicles. Most notably, he's stretched out a Porsche so that his wife could put the minivan doors in it to pick up the kid. Really kind of outrageous things like that. Like at his direction, an artist has made a copper statue of his wife as an angel. It's like outside their house. It's like insane. He's definitely a wife guy. And so it would not be that far of a stretch for me if he got his wife the first RM they own, because, you know, like either she wanted it or because he thought it was cool. The next pick I think that would be an easy add to his collection would be the RM009. This is one of the first, you know, able to be, I guess, acquired RMs. And even that is a stretch because this watch auctions at between $2 and $3 million, right? It went to retail in the lower six-figure range, but, you know, Richard Mille has climbed in popularity since then, and they now look at this model as a very, very notable early kind of progenitor to the rest of the lineup. Most notably, it has the skeletonized dial, which he seems to like. You can see the guts of the movement, and due to how light this one is and the experimental nature of the case that was used, it seems like it would be one that he would cherish based on the fact that the novelty, the innovativeness, and kind of all the things that kind of feel like they resonate a lot with, you know, tech people. Another watch that he might potentially get is the RM056 Prototype Sapphire. This is one of the first times, or at least the first time Richard Mille publicly ever made a sapphire watch, you know, and Mark Zuckerberg seems to like the very notable historical examples. This watch is super rare. Once again, it's skeletonized. You can see right through the case, you know, especially since it's translucent sapphire. And in addition, he seems to have a liking for chronographs and more higher complexity watches, and this watch definitely, you know, embodies that with its, you know, kind of exposed flying tourbillon. And then last but not least, I think another obvious choice would be the RM2705. This is the newest and, I guess, last iteration of the Rafael Nadal tourbillon line of watches that RM does. You know, Rafael Nadal and RM had a very long and storied collaboration over the course of like 12 or 13 years. And this is kind of the send-off watch, so to speak, because Nadal has recently retired. This watch has the distinction of being, you know, knock on wood, the lightest watch ever. You know, it's very thin, not the thinnest ever, but it's the lightest ever. I think it weighs at 11 grams or thereabouts. And so the reason why I picked this one is because this seems to be a very tech guy oriented watch. It's very slim. It's, you know, very light. You don't hardly notice it's there. It's super, you know, resistant to shocks, you know, as Nadal, you know, swings his tennis racket at an ungodly amount of G-force. And Zuckerberg in recent years has gotten a lot more physically active and taken part in some more extreme sports, the mixed martial arts and stuff like that. And so I think his active lifestyle would really be suited by something like this. And in addition, it's been tried and true for Jensen Huang, who is the CEO of NVIDIA. Jensen famously was asked a decade ago, like, why he doesn't wear a nice watch by an interviewer. And Jensen replied, because the most important time is now. And, you know, recently, a couple months ago, he was seen with a $2 million RM on his wrist. So, you know, it used to be now. And for that reason, I think, you know, NVIDIA is kind of leading the charge on a lot of AI stuff, and Zuck is super, you know, leaning into that. I think he might take a cue from his peer and potentially pick up one of these limited RM2705s. So the reason why Zuck doesn't have a Richard Mille is kind of unclear to me. Like, Zuck tends to like classier watches, right? Yet at the same time, like even his Patek and stuff like that, he's chosen the more kind of, not experimental, but the more like forward-leaning things that Patek has done, right? And so Richard Mille is potentially even more avant-garde than that. Like it's way more noticeable, but I feel like RM comes at it from a very honest place. They, experiment with everything, including, kind of what people's perception of a watch should look like. And, I think those are qualities that, Mark Zuckerberg, at least, when he was younger, for sure, when he was in his move fast and break things phase, would have appreciated. I think part of the reason he doesn't have an RM is because none of them obviously, stick out to him in a way, because some of the examples that we've noted here, they're very rare and they're very hard to come after. And, they're subject to even, in Mark Zuckerberg's case, some amount of availability. So famously, Elon Musk, in his early photos, after he sold what became PayPal, and then after he was like well into the Tesla company building thing, he was photographed for about a year wearing an RM, one of the earlier versions. And so I feel like it's a natural kind of pick for people like them. But I feel like, maybe there is a level of ostentatious affluent signaling that they want to avoid, because a Patek, if you don't know what it is, you have no idea. I feel like an RM, it's in rap songs and things like that. It's harder to hide, and it's harder to hide the value of that piece. If I had to pick a watch for Zuck, it'd be the RM 2705, mainly because it's still in production, even though it's very limited. I think Zuck would easily hop to the front of the allocation kind of heap, just like Jensen did, because Jensen has never owned an RM, allegedly until that point. And normally that's not the watch they start you on. But I think when it's someone as influential, to the world as like a NVIDIA or Facebook, I think they would make an exception. And I think it's just the most natural choice. It's also probably one of the more low-key RMs, because you can get it configured basically with the strap in all black. And so, kind of just looks like very mechanically transparent Fitbit at that point.
Would you give Zuckerberg an RM?
Would I give Zuckerberg an RM? Yes, I have one I would give him. It'd probably be one of my cheaper ones. Thanks for checking out my video. If you enjoyed this and, kind of similar topics, such as, kind of rarefied, hard to come by experiences and trinkets and objects, check out my stream. I stream both on Kick and Twitch. The name is the same on both. It's Nick Wickley. Thank you for tuning in.